All right. I think we might be ready to go and live on Facebook. Also, let's see here. We got a few people on Zoom. So hello, everybody on Zoom. And hello to everybody on Facebook. Let's see if I can get our comments and stuff going over here too. Oh, it's not, nothing's happening. Hi, Gina. All right. So hello, everybody. Welcome back to this next part of our free tarot class series here with the Sisters Enchanted. I'm sorry, what is happening? Hi, Christina, Mallory. Hello, everybody. And Ellie, Sisters Enchanted. What does it even mean, the Sisters Enchanted? I'm Sarah, founder of the Sisters Enchanted, where it's our mission to make magic mainstream. And this month, we are making magic mainstream by talking about tarot. So I'm super excited to be back talking live with you about this. Let's see here. Oh, is it the email you sent before, Christina? I'll have to look at it. I did look at it, but then I didn't reply to it. Or if there's a new one, then I'll look at it today. And then, yeah, I'll check my email. Sorry, I'm the worst of emails. I'm pretty much the worst of like getting back to people on most fronts, pretty much all the time. So, okay, hi everyone, Shay and Carmen and Shelly, hello. So anybody who's watching on Zoom, I will send out the replay link later on tonight. And then also, yeah, all right, cool. So I've been away for the last few days, and so I feel out of touch, but I'm not. So I've been checking out the homework threads, and I see that you guys are posting such cool stuff, and I love watching those. Remember that we are going to pick a few prize winners at the end, and we will send some stickers and things your way. So you want to participate on the homework threads. So far we've talked about the difference between tarot and oracle, and I've given you some strategies to get to know your cards. And we also talked about tarot journaling, and I gave you some different exercises and things that you might want to try for that. It's like the couch fall over. Hopefully it doesn't fall over. Okay. So I gave you some different strategies for tarot journaling and some different things that you can try and write down. So it's been really cool to see the different self-reflection sorts of things that you have been working on and discovering with tarot. So today we're going to talk about the traditional meanings of the cards, which I know a lot of people have been asking about. So I think it's really important that we started the way we did with the more intuitive work, because if you get really hung up on the meanings of the cards, you might find that it's harder to step away from those meanings and just start reading intuitively. So that's always my goal, is to get you reading intuitively before anything else. And so now though, we've done that for a week, we've got 2 weeks left, and we are going to dig into those actual card meanings. So we're going to talk the major and minor arcana today. As I talked about during the first class, the tarot is made up, it's a 78 card deck traditionally, following the Rider-Waite system. Some other cards, for example, the Dreams of Gaia Tarot, excuse me, has its own system. So there's some extra cards in there. Occasionally, you'll find decks where they just add like a few bonus cards, extra things, but they still kind of follow the system. So I would just check into your card deck when you purchase it, see how many there are. If there's more than 78, that's totally fine. But there's been some additions to that deck, right? So the traditional Rider-Waite system is 78 cards, which is what makes it tarot. And it follows this progressive order and is, in fact, the system. So the first of the cards, the first 22 cards, is the major arcana. The major arcana is the story of the Fool's Journey. So in your readings, the major arcana typically represents, now this isn't always, but typically represents kind of the things in life that are more steadfast, or the like big changes. So think about, your daily life. So today, maybe you want iced coffee. Tomorrow you want hot coffee. The next day you want a latte. The next day you want tea. Like those are kind of little life things. But the big things that happen. So when you're 20 years old and you have this like zest for whatever, and you're out there on this adventure and you're willing to hop on a motorcycle and ride across country without thinking about it, versus when you're 40 and you got like all these kids running around your feet, you got stuff to worry about, right? That's the major arcana stuff. It's the big thing. It's like the big transitions in life. It's the big stuff. It's also the big things you experience. So when you have career shifts, maybe you have losses in your life, something that you gain in your life. Those are the big sort of major arcana things. Whereas these kind of littler things are minor arcana things. And the minor arcana is made up of 4 suits, as we did talk about the first day. We have wands and swords and cups and pentacles, which each represent one of the elements. And we'll talk about those more also. So let me just check and make sure I'm not missing any comments or anything like that. I think we're good. I think we're good over on Zoom without any questions. Remember, you guys can ask questions or interject or whatever you need, and I'll be sure to check in also. I'm trying to stay super focused today. It's been a long few days. All right. So our major arcana, and I just have here a regular old, this is the Universal Rider Waite deck, and it's like pretty standard. It's the standard imagery. Nothing super cool or special about it besides that it's a tarot deck, which is amazing. So the major arcana, like I said, it's these more pieces of your life kind of stuff. So the major arcana begins with the Fool. Let me just pull a couple of cards out here. So the major arcana begins with the Fool. So the Fool is your first card. It's the 0 card. The Fool is it's the beginning. It's 0. You can see here the Fool's about to walk off the edge of the cliff, right? The Fool is naive. The Fool has faith that everything's going to turn out the way it needs to turn out. The Fool is just ready and raring to go on his or her adventure with no questions asked. So the Fool here, this can be you. Let me just check Alicia's comment here real quick. It cuts off on my phone. So Alicia had a business reading done for me and I got all major arcana cards. Okay, so Alicia's question is, what does it mean when that happens? So if something is all major arcana cards in a reading, I typically look at that as that, well, I mean, it would depend on the reading, but that either there is great work to be done in order for the whatever the question is, if it's all major arcana, like all of these great pieces of life have to come together, or there's great work to be done, or like once the end point is reached, then it's going to be a new kind of phase in your life. So all major arcana things to me is like big life shifts. It's not like you can just, it's not really like, oh, do a little bit of shadow work and you're going to be fine. It's the big life stuff. All right, back to our Fool's journey. So the Fool is, like I said, it's the beginning. It's the 0 card. The Fool is like just ready, raring to go. Doesn't have a care in the world and is totally excited to move forward. So the next card in the major arcana is the Magician. This is our first card. So I talked to you, I think in both of the last videos, about how your intuition is what you know to be true externally, and also your subconscious self, what you know to be true subconsciously. And that's where your intuition comes into play. So it's our logical self, our ego, that's our more masculine piece of us, versus our subconscious, our higher selves, that's a more feminine side. So the Magician is that masculine world. It's the things, the tools that we have that we carry with us that are outside of us. It's like the tools we're born into in our life. And the next card on the Fool's journey is the High Priestess. So where the Fool is your external logical ego self and the things that you're born into, the tools you have around you, the High Priestess is what is inside of you. And so we have there right away, in the first 3 cards of the major arcana, is basically like being birthed into the world. You're birthed into the world. You have your logical world, and then you have the subconscious world that you bring with you. And you bring those on your journey. So the Fool's journey can be with, I'm just checking the comments. Okay. The Fool's journey can begin with any new area in your life. So if you get married, right, that can be the Fool going on that journey. And then you go through all of these things again. If you get a new job, that can be a new journey beginning. If you have children, that can be a new journey. Any of those big things is basically like a Fool's journey starting all over again. So Charlene says hers is the Traveler. Yeah, so it could just be a different name, and that's totally, totally fine. If it's a Rider-Waite clone and it's following the system, these same meanings are still going to apply. The same story is going to apply. So here, this is the kind of the stuff you're born into the situation with. Whether you get a new job, you buy a new house, you get married, like whatever it is, you are bringing this stuff into the situation. You're excited, you go into it, not knowing what's ahead, your logical stuff, like kind of what from the world around you, and then what you're bringing in through your subconscious. And that's the beginning of your journey. From there, we run into the Empress and the Emperor. So these are basically the mother and father figures, the nurturing figure and the authority figure. And so again, this is all kind of part of that beginning piece. So the Empress and the Emperor, they don't represent people necessarily. It can be like, for example, in a situation, the nurturing figure, like an action that needs to be taken. Maybe like self-care is the nurturing thing. Maybe the nurturing thing is releasing something or letting go of ties to something, right? It's not always a person, but in the Fool's journey, we're characterizing it as a person. So then we have our mother figure and our authority figure. And those are the first 5 cards of the major arcana. So it's basically, think about a child's life, right? If we're looking at this whole timeline of life, and that's the first part of the major arcana. It's like, you've got zest, you've got your what you know to be true, all the tools with you, you've got your intuitive tools, there's some nurturing figures, there's some authority figures, and all of this is around us. And then we have the Hierophant. The Hierophant is the 5th card, and this is society, basically. It's conforming to society's standards. It's the other authority figures, like a religious authority figure, maybe like police, or like anybody. Like it could be just the person who runs a grocery store. If you're thinking of those ideas of people, it's the people that are setting standards for us. So it's our society at large. It's the standards that have been set for us. And once we see those standards, we can't unsee them, right? Once we know that it's not okay to walk outside the house naked and just like go get our mail, you can't unsee that standard. That standard, and that standard is now going to follow you. And you can't unsee the standard. And that's what the Hierophant kind of represents. It's like community. So it can be falling into a community. It can be finding your people. But once you see those standards, you can't unknow them. The Fool has now seen those standards, and the Fool is now forever changed, having run into those standards, right? So the Fool now is moving past his immediate family, the things he's born into, and is now dancing with society. And that's what we're meeting outside of us. So the Fool's growing up, right? We're moving through life. Maybe we took our new job and we go in there and we figure out who our coworker is. It's going to be our best friend. We figure out like who the mean person is. And then we see the standards. We see that it's standard to be to work on time. It's standard to eat lunch in this certain chair or break room or whatever. We see those standards. So we've met them. We know the standards. And now this is where like we start to grow and choices come in. And we see the Lovers here. So if we're following just like a childhood journey through life, this child has met society, has grown a little bit. Maybe the child's going to pair off. We're grown now. This can be an actual relationship. The Lovers can be a relationship with a person. It could also be like a balance between masculine and feminine. It could have to do with you. All of these cards have layers and layers and layers that can mean so many different things. But as we're looking at this progression, right? Like that's the progression that we're following. We've met society. We see the standards. We can't unsee those standards. And now we're starting to pair off. So whether we pair off with people, we pair off with ideas, we pair off with ourselves. We're trying to find balance between pairing. That's where we meet the Lovers. Once we've done this pairing off, we might find we need to make some choices. Are we going to stay in this path? Are we going to stay with that person? Are we going to keep treating ourselves this way? Are we going to take a different action? We need to find different pairings. Like we're out there living life now. And that's where the Chariot comes in, is this decision making that has to happen. And in that decision making, we need to find strength. So you might find that it's super hard to make these choices. You might find that it takes physical strength to like get out there and take an action, or maybe it takes emotional strength. Maybe you need to be the strength for another person. Maybe you need to be the strength for a group of people. But we find that there's strength that comes into play in these growing pains that we're experiencing, this life that we're living out there with society, right? So we've made these choices, we're finding strength to do what we need to do, and we come upon the Hermit. So after making these choices, after growing, after realizing that, oh my goodness, I'm not just born with what I know and what's available to me and my mother and my father figure, there's a whole society. I have to make choices. There's other people. Who do I love? Who don't I love? Who am I going to choose to love? How much am I going to love them? We make all these choices. We find strength. And then sometimes it's time to just go within. So the Hermit is that kind of quiet card. It's like reflection, looking at how everything is working for you up to now. Are you on the right path? Have you made the right choices? Do you need to replenish your strength wells? That is the Hermit. And from here, we have the Wheel of Fortune. So once we've rested, you know, we're letting our choices so far kind of play out, land where they will. The Wheel of Fortune is a little bit scary because you don't know where it's going to land, right? We don't know if all the decisions we've made have been good. We don't know if we have enough strength to keep going forward. We don't know if we have the right kind of strength. We don't know if we chose the right person or the right path back at the Lovers. We're not sure. And so here we have the Wheel of Fortune. We do know that the wheel keeps spinning no matter what. So in the Fool's Journey, we still have some cards to go through there. You may find like that, you know, at the Chariot, maybe a really poor decision was made and you find yourself back on a new journey and you're starting all over again. While the Fool's Journey is linear, you can certainly jump out and be at all different places at any given time on the Fool's Journey, right? So we have our Wheel of Fortune and the chips are going to fall where they fall. And this is where we find justice. So justice is going to come into play. If, you know, we're doing, the idea is if we're doing the right things, if we're doing nice things for other people, we're treating ourselves well, we're treating the environment well, we're treating the world well, then, you know, that's going to play out to be great for us. And then if we're not doing so well, if we're harming others, we're not being nice to others, you know, this justice is gonna come back and get us. From here we have the Hanged Man. So we've lived through all these things. The Wheel of Fortune has landed where it's going to land. Justice is being served. We're reaping whatever it is that we have sown so far. So if we've done the work, hopefully we're reaping the good benefits of that. If we've not done the work, we're going to be experiencing that as well. And this might be a time to shift perspective, like the Hanged Man. The Hanged Man is like hanging himself upside down. He's seeing the world from another point of view. And here we're going to ask ourselves, you know, how is the Wheel of Fortune going for me? How is life going for me? Are things going well? Am I treating myself well? Am I treating the world well, other people well? Am I putting my best foot forward? Am I doing my best every single day? And maybe shift perspective and ask, okay, well, what can I shift so that I can do better? Because we are all humans having the human experience, and we're probably not always doing the best that we can. And if we are, maybe there's something else that we can do to like do it differently, do it a little bit better, learn something new. So that's our Hanged Man. And from that shift in perspective, we might see what we need to put an end to. And this is the Death card. So in putting an end to something else, we're putting something, you know, to death. We're killing something off in our lives. That could be a relationship. It could be a habit. It could be a thought pattern. It could be a stage in your life, or like a place where you live. It could be anything at all. You can put an end to absolutely anything. But in shifting our perspective, we might see like, oh, okay, if I do this differently, if I put an end to this, it's going to open me up to a different possibility. And putting an end to something will give us the opportunity to practice temperance and balance. So where in our life can we bring some more balance in, so that we're putting an end to the things that aren't serving us, and we're going to be able to call in more of what is serving us. And through this temperance and finding balance, we might see what this devil actually is. what is it that we are holding ourselves onto? So the devil can be it can be a person, it can be a thing, it could be a habit. It's anything that it's like the addiction card basically. So anything that you are like doing too much of, or maybe is somehow holding you back. Like I said, it could be a physical, tangible thing, or it could simply be a thought pattern or something like that. But we see this when we're trying to find balance. We might see like, oh no, this thing's not allowing me to have balance. So when we don't correct that balance, this is where we have the Tower might hit, right? So this is an abrupt change. The Tower is an unexpected sort of bump in the road that comes in, knocks you off your feet. But with the Tower, with destruction comes hope, the Star. So no matter what happens, any unexpected horrible thing that arises, after chaos, there is peace. So think about hurricanes, tornadoes, like when you're looking outside your windows and it's like we get hurricanes here where I live, and it's just like crazy wind whipping and stuff flying around. And then it's this eerie peace afterwards. That's the Star. There's hope after all of that chaos. From there, we move into the Moon and the Sun, which is, again, we're a little bit cyclical here. We're moving back to some masculine traits and some feminine traits. So the Moon is very feminine. The Sun is very masculine. So it's kind of like, what is your internal self telling you right now? Are you listening to your internal self? Are you one with your internal self? Or are you trying to kind of pull the wool over your own eyes? And how are you presenting yourself to the world around you? And when you look at those things, how am I inwardly? How am I outwardly? You learn that the only thing that can judge you is you. You have to face your own self at the end of the day. Am I speaking my truth? Am I living my truth? And be your own judge. And then after experiencing all of this, learning the big grand lesson that you are judgment, you are your own judge, you are your own higher self, you need to live up to your own higher self. That is when we have reached the world. That's your full circle, and we have all of this higher knowledge, and we're like, bam, I'm aligned and I know all the things. It's like a completion sort of piece with the world. So that is the Fool's Journey for you. And in a nutshell anyway, and like I said, all of these cards have layered meanings. There's like astrological associations, numerological associations, there's symbolic associations, color, like there are so many associations to each of these cards. But the idea with the Fool's Journey, again, in the major arcana, is that these represent the big things in our lives, the big shifts. This isn't like, your little day-to-day decisions. It's like the big stuff, and it's the long-standing stuff. It's the stuff that's going to have impact on you. So these big experiences that you're going to carry with you through your life and that really make you who you are. That is the major arcana sort of stuff. And so Mallory says that she always saw the hangman as meaning wisdom. He reminds me of the story of Odin hanging himself in the tree to gain the wisdom of the runes. Yes, and that's one of those layered sort of meanings to the cards. You can look through any mythology from lots of different like cultures and times and see associations throughout the cards as well. So let me drink some tea because my throat and all the talking. Yeah, when you change perspective though, Mallory, like that's when you get, like they say, think outside the box. That's when you get the best insights. So there you go. That is the story of the Fool's Journey. So those are your major arcana cards. Those are the first 22 cards. The remaining cards are the minor arcana. Let me just see where we're at for time. Okay. So the remaining cards are the minor arcana. These are broken up into 4 suits. The typical Rider-Waite suits are the swords, the pentacles, the cups, and the wands. So these are your 4 suits, and the wands are associated with fire, cups with water, pentacles with earth, and swords with air. Okay, so you have these 4 suits, and each suit is its own progression of cards from ace through 10. So ace, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And they each have 4 court cards as well. And the court cards, let me just put these back. The court cards typically represent, like they can represent people or situations. Those tend to be the cards that people find the most difficult to read. And that's because you kind of are never sure, like, is it a person, is it a situation? But the more you read and the more you trust your intuition, the easier it will be for you to differentiate those things. And we'll talk about those a little bit more now too. So let's just go through some of these cards here. Now, I'm not going to go through each suit because that would take us for a long time, but we'll look at them kind of, and we'll see what happens. We'll do some generalizations and see where we go with it. So swords is your air suit. So air is the stuff that is up here. Let's see here. So April, I'm just looking at the comments real quick because wondering how to do day 8's homework because I didn't understand the fool's journey. Okay, yeah. So this, I didn't post the thread in the group yet, so we could do the video first. Now I think it should be better for you. Hi Bert. Okay, so air is, I guess, move around. I've been sitting a lot I spent 2 days in New York City, well, in Brooklyn, at a entrepreneur conference, which was really fun. But I've been sitting a lot in the car a lot, and just like the whole bag is tense. Anyway, okay. So swords is the air suit. Air is like your thoughts. It's all of these things happening up here. So when we think about air, we tend to look at some of these cards and think that it's the more violent sort of suit, or like a negative suit, which isn't really the case, and we'll talk about why. But you'll see we have the 3 of Swords, even like the 4 of Swords kind of looks like it's, a funeral. Let's see some of the other ones that aren't so great. The 8 of Swords, all bound up. The 9 of Swords is like the nightmare card. And of course, the 10 of Swords, the stabbing in the back card. So we tend to look at the Swords deck and be like, oh my goodness, that can't be good. Or the Swords suit rather. Or people will pull a lot of Swords cards and be like, oh, doom and gloom is upon me. In my opinion, the Swords tends to be the more doom and gloom sort of suit because it's our thoughts can be our own worst enemy, right? You could have the best life in the world. You could have food in your fridge, a roof over your head, people who love you, and, like clothes and vacations. You can have all of the things. But if your thoughts aren't great, if you're like hating on everything, or you have really low self-worth and you think very poorly of yourself or something, none of that stuff is going to matter because your thoughts are going to like upend your life, even though everything can be amazing. So yeah, Jennifer Joe is saying your thoughts dictate your reality, for sure. So that's why I think that the Swords has the imagery that it does. For me anyway, that makes sense because it's so important. Your thoughts, you could have, like I said, riches galore, but if you aren't happy and your thoughts aren't happy, then nothing's going to feel amazing for you. So you have all of these things to contend with the Swords, right? So the Swords is the air suit, and it does, like I said, it does get that kind of bad rap as like, oh my goodness, so many bad things, like stabbing and death and all these things. But really, it's your own thoughts, and as Jennifer Joe says, your thoughts are dictating your reality. And so that's why I think it kind of is the way it is. So those are your Swords cards. Your Pentacles are the suit of the Earth suit. So that is materialism. It's being grounded in your world around you. It's also your Pentacles is also like your root chakra, kind of in terms of your safety and groundedness in your life. So for example, if you're doing a reading and you pulled like one Pentacles card and you had all these swords surrounding it, then that might be a good time to consider your thoughts around your world or something, or if you were looking at like doing a shadow work sort of reading, or doing some shadow work and you get no Pentacles, or you get like Pentacles that are all reversed or something, then that might be an indication that there's some work to be done in terms of your feeling grounded in your world and like that safety feeling, that feeling safe and grounded in the world around you. So the Pentacles is the kind of the journey sort of to prosperity. It's a journey to prosperity, and also the like feeling safe, feeling grounded in your material world. So each of, in the Rider-Waite imagery, each of the aces is a hand basically presenting an opportunity. So with the swords, you're presented an idea. What that idea is and what you do with it is up to you, but you're being presented an idea. With the Pentacles, you're being presented an opportunity for prosperity and for growth in your material world. What you do with that is up to you. And then again, we see choice. We see all of these choices, all of these things along the way that you might run into. And at the end of the Pentacles, though, is the kind of like ultimate family card. You see like a sort of elderly man, like a grandfather figure, with presumably like one of his, his children, or a, married couple with like some more small children. So we see 3 generations there, some pets, and everybody's just like, we would think happy and affluent and good and all good. And so the idea is that when you take this opportunity, you have the opportunity to grow all of this into being. But it's like the major arcana stuff, right, will have you tackled all those big things to make that possible for you. The ace of, with the cups, this is our water suit. So water is emotions. And Pentacles and cups are both a little bit more feminine, where swords and wands are a little bit more masculine. So with the cups here, that's our emotions. So here you're being presented with the opportunity for love, for loving yourself, for happiness, all of these good emotional things. And then again, you experience this journey along the way. So with each of the suits, the 5 card is typically a conflict of some sort. So it could be an internal conflict, it could be an external conflict, but the 5 being the middle between the ace and the 10, it's kind of that turning point. Are you going to have to are you going to make it over the hill, or do you need to slide back down and start again? or are you going to ride out the conflict and you're going to make it to the other side? What does that look like for you? So the 5s are those conflicts, and they are those turning points in each of the suits. And so in each of them, you do see, with the exception of swords is a little bit more linear, and it ends with that kind of stabbing in the back, like death card. It's a little bit of a Debbie Downer to look at. But the rest of them, you kind of end with like, the Pentacles and the cups anyway, you end with kind of happier cards, I would say. And then with the swords and the wands, there's like kind of some more work to be done there. But it's how you incorporate it into your life. What you think of it is always what's the most important thing. So with the wands, we have the fire suit here. And what's important to note about the wand suit is that the wand here, it's alive. It's very much alive. It's sprouting leaves still. So this branch, this wand, it's not just a dead stick that somebody picked up out of the woods. It has a lot of life to it. And you're moving through this kind of journey of adventure with the wands. The wands they're fire, so they're moving, they're quick moving, they're opportunity, they're hard work. And yeah, it's like what you're going to make of the fire that's lit inside your soul. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to proceed on that journey and experience all there is to experience, even when it's really hard? Or are you going to like give up and backslide into the beginning of the suit, which is easier than the second half? So let's look at that a little bit more closely. So in the wands, we're presented with this opportunity, right? The ace of wands is our opportunity. The 2, we're like exploring. This guy literally is holding a globe in his hand. The world is his oyster. The 3, he's like, all right, I'm going to make some choices, go on my journey. The 4 is the marriage card, we call it. But it could be the marriage of an idea, like you have committed to an idea, you've committed to a journey. And then we have the 5, which is our conflict. So the beginning half of this suit is really like easy peasy, airy fairy. You're like excited that, there's all this cool stuff happening, and you're like committing to yourself, you're going to go on the journey. And then after the 5, maybe like we've come out of the conflict and we're feeling like really good about ourselves. We're like riding through the crowd where people are cheering for us, we're cheering for ourselves. But then we see that there is hard work. This guy's doing some hard work. This guy's like, oh my gosh, my head is bandaged, I'm exhausted, what's even happening? And then this one just has this like whole stick of things to carry, or this whole bundle of sticks to carry. And he's like, oh my God, my aching back. But so it's up to you though, at this point, this turning point, if you're gonna like quit the and just do the stuff that feels good and never move through the hard stuff, so that you can then experience like a whole new thing in your life and do something new again. And that's kind of like the trick when we look at the suits as a whole, is that it's similar to the major arcana, and that there is this journey, there's this linear journey that's happening. And where in that ace through 10, where in there are you going to persevere and push through? Or where are you going to slide back? Or where are you going to just stay where it's comfy and where it's nice and safe? But in doing that, you're going to miss out on opportunity down the road. And that's how we can look at the minor arcana. All right. So the court cards, I did talk about this a little bit on the first day because somebody was asking questions about that, but I'll go over it now too. So each of the minor arcana suits has 4 court cards. We have the page, the knight, the queen, and the king is what they're typically called. Sometimes, different authors will change those up a little bit. The idea is that the page represents the youthful energy. It's like the child, a little bit naive, excited, ready to explore and learn. The knight is kind of the teenager, that like quick energy, maybe willing to do some things that other people might not be willing to do, maybe doesn't always think things through, but is like, it's cool, I can leave home at, and go live by myself with no world experience. I'm up for that. That's your knight. The queen is the like emotional center of that court, that family court. She is independent, she's knowledgeable, but she is also still nurturing. So it's kind of like, you think about the nurturing figures in your life, whether they be men or women, identify as men or masculine, feminine, whatever, but those nurturing sort of people, those people that are like, yes, I'm going to tell you how it is, but I'm still going to slide you a cookie. Like, I'm still going to give you a hug at the end, versus the kings, who are those authoritarian people that are just going to like lay it down for you. They are not going to they're not going to be wishy-washy. They are completely independent. They're able to just do things, and they don't feel like they need to give you that hug at the end. They're just like, yes, no, this is how it is. Where the queen is still going to nurture you a little bit when you need some nurturing. And again, those can represent people or situations. So the page can actually represent a person in your life who's a young person. It could also represent you in a situation. So if you're brand new to a situation, like brand new to a career, brand new to motherhood, brand new to marriage, brand new to a new idea, like whatever you're brand new to and you're really excited about, you can be the page in that situation, versus down the road when you're like schooled in it, everything is like, like the back of your hand, you don't need any icing on the cake anymore. You're like good to go. Then you'd be the king of that. Where they can also represent situations. So if there's a situation, like maybe you're trying to sign a contract for a house or something, and you just started talking about it, you're like, oh, maybe we'll put maybe we'll put the offer in on it. Then that might be the page of that situation, versus like the king, when it's completed, it's done, there's no more questioning, it is what it is. So court cards can be a situation, or they can be people. They also all have different energies too, which is how I like to read them. So the pages are associated with earth, and the knights with fire, the queens with water, and the kings with air. So like the king of swords would be the most in control of his thoughts, right, and his ideas. He'd have like the most clarity in ideas, whereas the page of pentacles is going to be the most earthly, have the most maybe like down to earth attitude, creative energy around a situation. The Knight of Wands is going to be the most fiery. Like, watch out for the Knight of Wands. If you're like, okay, if you're like in a new relationship and you're like, okay, what's the energy around this relationship? And you pull the Knight of Wands, then I'd be like, okay, we need to slow down because we're moving really fast. That's like a really fast sort of energy. Like I would really, I'd slow that down for sure. So yeah, so those are the 4 suits for you. And a cool way to learn them is to take each of the cards, like take the Ace of Swords, Ace of Wands, the Ace of Pentacles, and the Ace of Cups, put them all together, and then compare them, like make notes about them. How are they different? So in the traditional Rider-Waite, these are all pretty similar. But if you take the 2s, for example, the 2 of Swords, the 2 of Wands, the 2 of Pentacles, and the 2 of Cups, and look at what's similar and what's different about them. And then get to know the energies of the suits in that way. Like, how's the story different? Because the 2 is always going to be about balance. It's always going to be about bringing things together. That's the nature of having 2 things, right? But what's different about these cards and what's similar about them? And that's a really cool way to get to know your cards also, and go through each of them that way. All right, so let's see some of the questions and stuff here. So, oh, you're welcome, Tina. Yeah, Tina drew up some cards. Samantha, not in this class. I don't have any extra notes besides what I have been emailing out to you. April is still a bit confused about the Fool's Journey. So the Fool's Journey is a progression through life, basically. It's the big emotions that you feel on any big thing in your life. So, if you're like deciding, like after you get married or after you go to college or you buy a house or you have children or like you just graduate high school and you're trying to figure out what to do with yourself, you're the beginning of any big piece of your life, any big journey in your life. You don't know what comes next. You just know what you know to be true about the world around you and what you have in your subconscious. You have people you can fall back on. You make relationships along the way. You've got to shift perspective. Things don't work. You change things up. So the Fool's Journey is all of these things that each of us experience all the time, but broken down into little pieces. And so the story is linear, but you can be anywhere in that story at any given time. You can find yourself stuck at the devil, like over and over and over again, and having to break free of that. So even though the story is linear, we don't always live it in a linear way, which is why when we pull cards, they pop how they pop and tell us what we need to know. But so the Fool's Journey is just a way we experience life. Let's see here. Hi, Kelly. So Bert says, sometimes when I read for others, the cards change their positions depending on that person's intentions. Yeah, and so with the cards, and that's where these layered meanings come into play too, is that each card has like so many meanings that it can be a little bit overwhelming to even try to learn them all, which is why I like to teach intuitive strategies first, so that what it feels like for you to pull the card is always going to be the most important, in my opinion. But yeah, like depending on the question that you ask. For example, let's see here. Like this is the 3 of Wands, right? So if you're asking a relationship question here, and you're like, I don't know, like, am I open to receiving a fully committed relationship? And this is something I'll talk about in a few classes about asking questions. Some of the most frequently asked questions I get are like, should I marry this person? Or when's this person going to propose? And things like that. And I'm like, those aren't the right questions, because you can only control yourself. You can't control anything else. So you've got to ask the questions from the perspective of like, what can I do in this situation? So if you're asking a relationship question, you're like, am I open and ready to like participate in this relationship fully? You pull a 3 of Wands. Like if you look at the Wands cards, there's 2 here together and 1 over here. So like, is there something that's going to pull you away from this relationship? Is there a piece of you that's not fully invested? Whereas if you're like, should I move forward on this journey? Maybe you pull this card and you're like, hell yes, move forward. You just have to decide like what to leave behind. You can't do everything, so depending on the question, you could look at a card in a completely different way. And 2, like if you're using a spread, the position of the card falls onto. Yeah, for sure, Bert. It can mean totally change things up. So yeah, so Rebel says that's what I've been doing. I'm working with 3 decks. Yeah, another cool thing to do if you're working with multiple decks and you're just like really gung-ho for learning, you're like, I want to learn it all, Sarah, is to take a couple of different decks and look at the, let me just find, look at how the cards differ in different decks. So let's look at this as an example of that. So here I have, I'm trying to keep them in order for the remainder of the class so they're easy to find. So here I have the Hermit from the traditional Rider-Waite, and here's the Hermit from the Lumina Tarot. So you can actually look and see like what's different. So what's the only thing really that's similar is that there's one person in each card and they're both holding the staff, right? But like this Hermit is way different than the energy of this Hermit. This Hermit to me is like, man, I'm tired and I just am like looking for a place to rest in the darkness. I just need to put my head down and think about this. Where this Hermit to me, she is like, she's like, hell yes, I'm alone. I'm independent. It feels great. And I am stepping like into my natural wild wisdom to listen to what I need to hear about myself to move forward. It's like 2 entirely different energies just looking at the imagery. Which is why too, I always start with intuitive reading versus teaching you the meanings, because it's going to be different depending on the deck that you pick up. For sure, like the same theoretical meaning is there, you know, going within, being alone, but the energy of these 2 images is without a doubt entirely different. And when you're more confident in reading intuitively, you can read into those energies differently. So yeah, so Alicia says, when I start getting stalker cards, I always pull another card and ask, what do I need to move on from the situation? Yeah, that is a great question to ask for sure. When that happens. So that can be if you are like Rebel and you're really like trying to learn, you know, you have a lot of cards, a lot of different decks, and you really want to layer it on. You can do these same strategies using different decks and look at them and see like, how is the energy different versus different cards or versus different decks and illustrations. And then you can use that too as you move forward, especially if you ever want to read for other people, if you don't already, in choosing like which decks are going to vibe with you energetically that day for that other person, for the reading, all of that cool stuff. I love the Lumina Tarot, but the cards are so thick and I have really small hands, so I have a very hard time shuffling it. As a result, I don't usually do big readings with it because I'm like, I can't shuffle it well. Like, you know, what's that, first world problems? For sure, small hand problems. So Jennifer Jo has been comparing the Klimt and Rider-Waite. They don't always correlate and the energies don't necessarily present in the right way. Yeah, check them out. I see Anna's watching. Anna, hello there, sister. All right, so let's talk about the homework for the next few days, and then I will let you be. I'm gonna go eat some dinner. I'm so tempted to shuffle those cards, but I have them all in order. Let me see if I can find the homework download, and then we can talk through it real quick. I just have to pull it up. Things are quiet over in Zoom today. No questions on Zoom, at least not that I see. And let's see what else is going on. Our podcast episode is late this week. I don't know what happened. I did it with Anna, and the audio on it is like, it cuts in and it doesn't cut in and out. It gets loud and quiet the whole time, which is very strange because we were the entire day, like the whole time. So I had to go through and all the quiet pieces individually raise the volume on them without raising it on the other pieces. And it took me forever. And then, like I said, I was in New York the last 2 days. So that took me forever. And then I was in New York, which got me even more behind. All right, I've got the homework up. So let me just share my screen and we'll talk about the homework real quick. And yeah, and then I'll let you guys get on with your Saturday. Okay. So the homework for today, and I'll put this up in the group by the end of today. Yeah, Anna, it's so weird. It's like we didn't move at all, and it gets really quiet and then really loud, and really quiet and really loud. So I had to take all the quiet parts, chop them out, and make them louder. And it's like not the best, but I figured it was better than me doing it. Anywho, so getting to know the major arcana cards. Today's homework, write or put that major arcana in order. And then write down the story in your own words. You can also write the story of your life. It's totally up to you. And then you can do this additionally by looking at different situations in your life. So like, as examples from my life, I might go back to when I did go off to college, when like even as a child, maybe when my mom got divorced, like I might explore that in the Fool's Journey and how that played out for me. Maybe like when I took my first big job, when I moved into the house I live in now, when I got married, when I had kids, like when I started my business, I might explore those through the Fool's Journey, see what I've experienced and what I can learn from that. So use it as a reflection tool for your own life. And then tomorrow's homework with the minor arcana is to lay them out in order and compare the blah, 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 blah. Compare the progression from ace through 10 of each of the suits. So let me explain this. So the 3 of Pentacles, which is a very earthy card, how does that compare to the 3 of Swords, which is an air card, right? How does the energy shift there? So the 3 of Pentacles, you'll see, it's like a teamwork card. People are working together, they're trying to get something done. Whereas the 3 of Swords is, it's that 3 swords piercing the heart card. It's like the heartbreak card. So how are we when we're thinking about the earthly world around us and we're thinking about our earthly circumstances and the material world around us? How are we like better at that 3 number? We're working with people, right? Like we want the material goods to come to fruition. So we're going to work with people, but we're like in our own head at the 3, we're crying, we're sad. What's that all about? So anyway, go through and look at the different suits and elements and see just what, there's no right or wrong answer. So if you're like, Sarah, this sounds really deep and complicated, that's, you can just skip the element part if you want and just look at the 3s all around and see how they're different. Do whatever like is easy for you. There's no right or wrong way. And as long as you participate, that's what matters to me. And so the next day, so today's Saturday, this will be Monday's homework. Monday's homework is to put your major arcana cards in one pile and all of the minors in one pile, and you can shuffle them up if you want so they're out of order. Pull a major arcana card and then pull a minor arcana card. How does the energy of that major arcana card shift when it's combined with the minor arcana card? So if you get the Fool and you get the 3 of Swords, again, we'll use that as an example. How does the Fool, this being that's naive, excited, they're on a new journey, but it's coupled with the 3 of Swords, which is the heartbreak card. How does that Fool then change to you versus the Fool combined with a 9 of Pentacles, which is very abundant? How does the Fool then speak to you when it's next to the abundant card versus the sadness card? And put that minor arcana card back, pull a different one, and explore how the major arcana card shifts when it's coupled up with different minor arcana cards. So the major arcana, again, is like the big things in your life. It's the big stuff, the big experiences. How does that big experience shift when the day-to-day world puts its little fingers on it? So that's what we're doing with the minor arcana card. We're like taking our big stuff, like the pieces of us, the things we've experienced that make us who we are, and then we take like the everyday life and sprinkle it on top and see how it impacts who we are, right? And that's what the homework is for Monday, which is day 10. So our next chat is going to be on Tuesday. I forget what time and what we're talking about, but our next one's on Tuesday. And then I think our following one is on, I want to say it's on Friday or Sunday. I think it's on Sunday. I have to look in the group and see. Anyway, we've got 2 more coming up this week. Our second one for this week, I will be doing from Massachusetts with, I have a whole group of enchanted sisters. We're gathering right outside of Salem for a few days for a witchy weekend, which is really cool. So that video, I know the topic is on confidence in reading. I can't remember what day it is. I think I want to say it's on Friday, but maybe I'll have some of our group members join in and chat with you guys too. We'll see if they want to get on camera. It could be fun. So that's your homework. And yeah, I'll post the thread in a little bit. I do got to go do some family stuff, but I'll get that thread for today up there. And then that's it. So thank you guys for joining me. And those of you on Zoom, I will download the replay for this and email it out. So if you're not on Facebook, you don't have to worry about it. And if you're on Facebook, it's going to be right there in the group for you so you can re-watch it. And I think that's it. Oh, so April's telling us it's Tuesday the 18th at 12:30 and Friday the 21st at 9:30 a.m. Yeah, so Friday I will be in Massachusetts with a whole gaggle of gals, and we'll have to share with you guys on video. So, all right, thank you guys for being here today, and that's it. So I'll see you in your email with the replay link, and then Tuesday with our next chat, and then the homework in the meantime. All right, thank you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.